Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, I want to show you some quick, I've got quite a few questions, so I want to show you some quick and easy practice seascapes. Seascapes are great to practice because we can put some sky in there, some movement of the water, and how I paint the water is very dependent upon the thickness of the paint. So those of you that are acrylic artists will really enjoy this. Now, if you're an oil artist, you can follow along these techniques too. We work from thin to thick, okay? So anyway, so what I have here is a board. This is a 12 by 16 board. I gave it a coat of the Heritage Canvas Prep Medium, one coat, sanded it lightly with 180 grit sandpaper. I'm good to go. I got a couple of ideas over here for some clouds and a basic seascape wave. I like this one because it's looking at it slightly different. The land we'll put in as a triangle this way, so we're looking more towards the back of the wave, which will allow us to put some of that foam in there, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. But there's not many clouds in the sky, so we'll do that, okay? So we're going to have some fun. My palette here, these are, of course, the Heritage colors. This is some some extender medium that I've thickened up. You've seen me do that before. I might use it today to show you if we have time. This is the Matisse Deravan open medium that I have out here. I love painting waves with this and clouds with this. It's a fantastic medium, keeps the paints wet for a long time, and it's thick, which is what I want. This is the Heritage extender medium here. This is thinner. This is what I'm going to start the painting with, and I'll finish the painting with the open medium. They both slow down the drying time quite a bit, but the open medium is thicker, has a little bit of binder, a little bit of glue in it, but being thicker, it allows me to lay one color up on top of another. I'll explain that, and I enjoy that a lot, okay? All right, so let's get into this. So, typically you don't divide a landscape or a seascape with the horizon line, this being the horizon line. You don't divide it right in half. So I don't want to do that. So I'm probably going to keep it a little lower like you see here because I want to develop some clouds to it, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is on my colors, so two of the colors is I have the Ultramarine Blue, the Phthalo Blue, and the Sapphire. Now the Sapphire is a mixed color. It is Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue, and a little bit of white, and I touched into some of that, hit a little bit of that Quinacridone there, not bad. Quinacridone Violet. I'm going to lighten this up quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to start with this right up around, I would say, an 8 or a 9, which is what I like to have when you look at your colors right along the horizon line. Value-wise, it's an 8 or a 9. Now, I got it up big back here, too, on the monitor. I love painting on the monitor because I see more things happening in there. So I want to get this, so white is a 10. So I'm down around a 7 or so right now. So I'm going to want to get this a little bit lighter. And I might have to, towards the end of this painting, put out a little more paint. But I want this fairly light. Now, acrylics are going to dry at least one value darker, okay? So we have to keep that in mind. So if you're going to do anything, as a matter of fact, before I get going here, I'm going to put out some more white because I know I'm going to do waves and beaches and all that kind of stuff. And this is just going to I'm just going to eat up my white quite a bit. So I want this really light. That's a good light color here. Now, to start out the painting, I'm going to thin the color. So, when I was an oil artist years ago, we would work from thin to thick. We'd work fat over lean, thin to thick. Thin our paints down, starting a painting with solvents, so those dry faster, and then thicken, adding more oil, more linseed oil, basically more fat to the paint as you put the layers on, thickening up the paint. And the reason for that is that the solvents, so those paints underneath would dry faster. That's what we were looking for. And you don't want to trap a slow drying paint under a fast drying paint, okay? Because then you'll crack your painting over time. And so we don't want to do that. Anyway, so I'm going to add to this some extender medium here. Okay, about an equal amount or so of extender medium here. And I'm going to use this as a real thin light coat, basically over my painting. Because, you've seen me do this in Westerns and do this with warm colors. But, if you're painting a real quick kind of a landscape here, we can do this, and I want to keep this thin. I don't want this thick. So if it starts to thicken up on you, add a little more extender medium. You could add water, but that's just water's going to cause your paints to dry really fast. And I don't really want that. So I'm going to leave maybe a few little holes of some light color coming through, but I want to put this down, even all the way down here, nice and thin here. Nice and thin color over the whole thing to work in, and this will give me something to work in. This will keep that when I put the extender on like this, I'll have, because I'm adding about an equal amount, I will have about 45 minutes or so of working time here. So out here now in Nebraska, this is the winter air. It's very dry, very, very dry, very low humidity, and the heat's on and stuff, so everything dries relatively quick. So now I have a real light coat over it. And what I'm looking at is basically this area right in here. Okay, so, and you would look at a horizon line, you would look, that's where it's going to be the lightest. So I'm looking at that right there. And you got to realize that your colors, acrylic artists, here, your acrylics are going to dry about one value down. So we're going to be fine with that. Now, let's just model in. Let's keep the extender going here. Let's take a bit of our sapphire and a bit of our ultramarine blue. I love these colors into the sky. The ultramarine blue especially, it gets that nice blue-violet color up here. So let's come up here towards the top and just gently work that in here. Now, so you'll see up at the top of your photo, it gets quite a bit darker. So we want to do that, but then we want this to lighten up as we get to the top. So each time you come back to your painting, start up at the top and then walk the color down. Don't grab it and put it down here. You'll make that too dark, too hard to soften out. So once you start to see the color soften out, then just start walking it down. And I want to leave this. I want a X motion and sometimes a few little pull throughs like this, but I want the sky to be darker at the top and lighter at the bottom, but I want to leave this. This is what I call the atmosphere. So I wanted a little bit more. Maybe we could have a touch of phthalo in there just as a little difference. It's kind of a very pretty color. Keep it thin, little extender here. That's pretty. That will make the clouds up here. And see, even up here, I want to get some of this happening, light and dark here. And then I want to gently walk this down. Lift the pressure on your brush. Soft brush. This is a fusion flat, a 2-inch fusion flat. Very, very soft brush. I love these brushes. So I get down here, and that just gives me a beautiful sky that's emulating some of the sky that I see over there. Maybe a little bit more up there at the top, just to get that richness to the sky here. And you see where it goes this, and you pick that up right there like that? That is the thinness. That's how you can tell you have your paint thin. Okay, so if that starts happening to you, that's because your paint is nice and thin. It's at the right consistency, and that's what I'm looking for. So to stop it, you use a soft brush, very soft brush, and a very light touch. Just lightly go over it, but I want to keep this kind of X motion. Don't go pull all the way across like that. You put in too many horizontal lines, and you'll lose some of that beautiful atmosphere of the sky. Okay, all right. Now, let's come in. I'll set that brush to the side there for a moment. Let's come in and let's put in our horizon line. So this is where I'm going to go a little bit dark. I'm going to work the horizon line. Now you see some artists and stuff use tape and everything, and you can do that if you want, okay? I don't. I like to use, I have a little tool here that I make. You've seen me use this on ships and stuff to do rigging, but I have a couple of blocks to it, and I kind of, sometimes I'll make a line so you don't want a crooked horizon line, but I'll use this and I'll show you how I do it. So getting back there into the very back, we're going to have some dark color, some nice phthalo and ultramarine. I love to make those about 1-to-1, real dark, really quite dark I'll set this up into the low side, right about level, like this, okay? And I'm just going to run my brush, so the blocks keep it up off the edge, and then I run the edge of the ferrule of the brush right along that piece of wood, like that, just like that. I'll make it, even though we're going to have trees and stuff over here, I'll give it a little bit of a line. But I like to do it maybe again one more time, and it kind of blurs that edge just ever so slightly, and that's what I'm going to look for. Now, let's just take a little more color, and we'll walk this down a bit. Now, I don't want to do one big long one. I want to do some multiple times here. Okay, a couple of times so I get, so short. I used to always love coming home from school and watching Helen Van Wyck paint on PBS. And she'd always say, and she said several times when she was doing backgrounds and stuff, on a normal painting here, don't take a mark any longer than a couple of inches, because that just makes too much of a solid line and you'll lose your interest to it. So let's not do that. This course is going to be land over there, but I want that. So you can see you get a real nice line. Now let's just continue carrying this down here. And again, I'm painting the ocean. And depending on the distance, you can, make this really choppy like this. Small, a little bit of angle, little bit of X's to your brush, and you'll start making it more choppy. But, and I want to add that extender. Don't forget to add that extender in here. We want that extender. We want this to start out kind of thin here. So keep that extender in there. And we'll come right up here by our beach. We'll let that happen. But you can see out over here, it's going to get darker. So we'll work a couple coats, but keep the color kind of thin, which means you have to work it a bit. You have to work it a bit to get that on there, but because the colors are going on thinner, a little bit of extender into that. So you have to work it a bit. You might have to do it a couple times. But see, each time I do this and streak like this, I get some nice streaks to the color. And that's one reason why I don't, you see when I put it on my palette here, I tap that extender in there and I'll mix it a little bit, but I don't want it mixed to the same consistency because I don't get as many of these variations, these soft little subtle variations that makes it look like ocean waves and stuff back there. So, and then lift the pressure on your brush. Now you can do it faster if you're under a time. If you're doing a time painting, you can do it faster with your 3/4 inch brush. Okay. Now I'm going to deepen this a little deeper, a little darker, because it does happen. I don't want to go quite that dark. Man, that's a lot of dark. But I want to come close to that, right up by that edge. And I don't want to pull too long. I want to give a little bit of breaks, vary the pressure, sometimes lift up and down like this, push up and down, and that will add a little variation to your mark here. Just as long as you don't make a solid mark that's, all one solid line mark that moves your eye horizontally through the painting too fast, too much. So here, so that looks, and I think I'll leave that right now. Now that's going to be wet. There's so much layers of wet paint there and extender. That's going to be wet for a long time. Now, see, this is the thing. In the photo, it's hard to see. You go back up over here, you can see there's a little cloud, little fog, and I lived on the ocean for 30 years, looking out over the ocean every chance you could see it because of the fog. There's a little fog back there. I'm going to take a little light color, a little bit of violet. I love violet. Sometimes I'll make that fog with violet and a little yellow, which grays it up quite a bit there. And it's just beautiful, beautiful color. A little bit of gray to it so a little bit of violet and a little bit of yellow right into my brush here. And I'll work this, and I have just a touch of that blue in there. I didn't clean it out real well, and I'll just come right by that and I'm looking for some of the interest. And it's a little thicker. I could still have some extender in there, but it's a little thicker here. And so and I'll rise this up into the sky here a bit. We'll rise this up, maybe work this up into the sky like that. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but we'll get a little bit of kind of cloudy fog along our horizon line. Sometimes I'll take it right down very carefully down by that base. And if you feel your line, and I do this, and so I'm going to walk this up because I'm going to put some clouds and stuff up here. So I want a bit of fog. And sometimes I'll carry that extra little yellow into some of this. So I get a little difference. Some of that, see, and it's hard to see, I know, but it's just a touch of that yellow. Now, what I like to do, I'm going to show you what I like to do for distance. I mean, that's neat, and that's very realistic what you had there. And I can always come back and clean it up. But I'm going to pinch wipe my brush. I call this pinch wiping. Taking out as much as you can out of the brush, leaving that soft fusion there. And I'm going to go back on the handle of my brush, and I'm just going to gently try to pull as even as possible right along here like that. And that starts to blur the line. So you can see on my brush, see the light and dark? Now, I don't want to go back and touch that exactly if I don't have the same thing, because the dark may climb up higher and I'll screw it up. So I'm going to wipe my brush again, maybe even use the other side, and I'm going to do it again, pull through here, and you can see it starts to just ever so gently blur that line. But see, there it is again. See, there's that light. So this is why you see me all the time in my paintings wiping my brush like this. Now, if I want to blur it even more, I can start like this and pull down slightly and lift off, wipe my brush, start back up here in the sky and pull down slightly. Lift off. Don't worry about taking it off too much. I'm blurring it out, blurring that line out. Okay, so now I can straighten it out here, and you can even come back like this, pick up just a little bit of your blue and go right back through that here a couple of times. Wipe your brush here a couple of times, and you'll start to bring those lines and those edges back, and you start to add a little bit more interest to it, right? So, and just do it slowly, and you'll bring it right back. And so I want those, see, I love that little bit of lost right there. And it's a little bit more of lost right up here. I might just bring just a bit of that right back up, just a touch higher right there. Small marks here, small marks. And that's where if I'm really painting for distance, that's where I looked at it. It's real blurry. You don't see it quite there. So either one is correct, but I do like that little bit of blurry. And so I'm going to come down just ever so lightly, just below that, with a little more dark, just below it. I'm going to leave that blurry edge right there. And I think that will look nice, right like that. That'll give me the depth, the darkness, but I want that blurry, and then I go up into the sky, okay? All right, so now let's go up. While we're there, let's talk about the clouds. So now, as you're going to paint clouds, there's a lot of different techniques I use to paint the clouds. You can start out with some of this beautiful fog color. Let's come over here to the white. We don't want to use pure white onto our clouds. We want to start out around a 9 or so with some of these beautiful grays. Now, I like to add quite a bit of the open medium as I build the clouds, but I'm going to start out with very thin with extender. So, and what is this? Thick paint defeats thin paint, right? And so right now in this area here, I have very thin paint. You can see I can wipe it and touch it, and I can get that out. So the thing is to painting some of these clouds, especially if you're going to use a knife. I'm going to show you with the knife. I want some wispy clouds. I don't want the paint to be too thick because it would just make one continuous thick cloud over the thin paint. So I want to start out, I'm going to make wispy clouds. I want to start out with my colors really thin, okay? So I'll start out thin, and this is how I like to do it. I like to just put that thin color on, and it's hitting the thin color of the blue. And here I have that. I'll touch into this, soften that out here. Let's put some thin clouds right up here. Now see, this is where I have it just a little heavier. I touched in there and there's a little heavier spot. You don't worry about that. I like that. I can soften that down. I could reach up and grab some blue. I can put a little blue in my knife. All of that is not as important as pressure. So what I do is I start to press, and this is what I call burnishing the cloud into the surface here. So I burnish that cloud down into that, and you can see it starting to soften out. Now, I can take my big brush. So I'm painting the wispy little top cirrus clouds, top stratus up there, you know. So now I'm going to take my big brush, soften that out, and I'll just pull through that just a bit. I like that high and low there to leave that high and low. Now, if you want to make them look like they're being windswept, pull down just a bit, and they'll be windswept through the sky here. So this is thin. So I'm going to come back and make sure I have it nice and thin. You can see how thin this is, okay? And you'll feel it over the surface. Let's put another little bit. Let's just leave like that. Leave a little bit. So this is like where you see this real super thin. That's where the knife, where I've pressed really hard on the knife, okay? Now, we could soften it again, or we can just pull through like this and just soften that cloud like that and make it look like a little wispy cloud. Let's put a little bit right over here. A little thicker, a little bit thicker, a little thicker. Just a little more paint right in there. Okay, I like that one. Okay, so I like that. So now we wipe this down. Make sure you don't have too much in your brush. Make sure you're using a very soft brush. Another way is right now, and this is very important right now, guys, everything you do has to do with what we call the tack of the paint. As the paint gets tacky, sticky, it sticks together, and so moving it with the brush becomes more difficult. Does that make sense? So if I pull through right now with the brush and I find that it moves too much, it almost disappears, well then I'll put it on like this and I'll just wait a few moments for it to tack or it to stick together, for the paint to stick together, then use my soft brush. Sometimes I run it on my paper towel like this so it's really soft, and I want a little bit of wispiness to it, so I'll pull through here just like that. I want to soften that edge, so you can use the corner of your brush here and just kind of whisper or pull through and soften and put that on. Does that make sense? Now I'm going to wipe off some of this knife. Take just a little bit more, maybe right up here. I like this. I like a little bit of these little sparks of clouds like that. I just love those into the top up there. So. And then I'll just soften those out a bit here, right like that. I love that type of sky. It just has lots of interest. Now, so we have that. Now let's come down and let's look at some other types of clouds here. So I'm going to start my clouds out a little thin here. So let's put some other clouds right down in here. We'll build them up. So the paint is just a little bit thicker than what I have on the surface, the sky that I put on. So my sky is right here. I can feel it, and then this paint's just a little bit thicker. And that allows the white of the cloud that I'm painting on here to stick to the surface like that. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I'm not going to paint those specific clouds, but then I can wipe my brush and I can push and I can soften. I burnish that in. See, I can burnish that in. I can leave those little edges if I want, right? I kind of like that. I'll burnish that. Let's go a little heavier right out. We want that. We want the viewer to pull right in here like that. So maybe I make a few little heavier clouds, and we're going to let this diminish down into the fog right down here. So this is just a touch thicker. And then I can burnish that, or I can blur. I like to call this blur. I don't call it blending because I don't want to blend it. I blur the edges. I use it to softly blur the edges. We're pulling this way, so let's just blur these a bit here. Sometimes you can just create a wispiness or a blurriness to it here, just like that. See, that makes a pretty little edges back there. Now, if you want to make more full-bodied clouds, and you'll see those in the photos that I have there, we would add shadows back in here underneath. So when I start to add shadows, what it is with that gray color underneath, and you see me with other clouds, some of the cloud videos, adding the different values, going darker of the shadow. Mid-ground shadow, that ground of the clouds gets a little bit darker. You could take any kind of darkness. I like to use sometimes a little burnt sienna, especially if I'm going to have it in the beach. So I might add a little burnt sienna into some of my blues here to start making a grayness to my cloud here. A little blue, a little burnt sienna makes a soft gray, and I can add a soft gray underneath here, underneath the clouds, to start putting a bit of the shadow in. And that looks really nice if you making bigger, more puffy clouds. If you make bigger, more puffy clouds, see what happens is the shadows down here, the light's going through the clouds, but the cloud is so thick, so opaque, you actually have a light that hits the top and a shadow, okay? So you have a shadow underneath. So you have to kind of pick the light. Now the light I'm going to bring in kind of this way, so the shadow part of the cloud would be here from left to right here like that. And so I will put the shadow of the cloud down. Let's just pull down slightly. Now these are quick and easy clouds. See, they do their job, right? They just do their job. Now, let's just streak a little bit of this back in through here, just to say we have some more, other clouds back there, right? Now, let's lighten up, and we're going to thicken up. So now I maybe add some open medium to this. The open medium will keep it thicker, but the other thing it does is it'll give it a little bit of transparency, which is what I want. And we'll build right here, the light part of our cloud right here. And I'm just troweling this on. I'll show you some different ways here. But you can sit there and you can burnish it, slight little movements like this to create, I love painting the clouds with the knife, moving it like this. And as you can see, you look at a cloud and you can see that right there, that movement right there like that. And then you can soften it out. Now, one of the other things, I'm going to clean out my brush, my 3/4 inch brush from earlier here, and that I was using on the ocean. Wipe it out real good because that's water. Water is a solvent. Sometimes I'll just dip it in a little extender, but I want to put it in some of this thicker white, and I can come through here and I can use this to soften. I'll pull a little bit horizontal, maybe a little down as so, a little bit down, and pull through some of this lightly because I can feel the thicker and thinner paint. And this is where I love to make these kinds of clouds that I get these edges to. Now you can make the harsher edge if you want to build this up right here and make a more round top cloud here with a little bit more of an edge. Those are nice to build up. Maybe a little bit of an edge here, right like that. You can build those up. Does that make sense? You can build up here. Soft pressure you can do. and you can make it more clear. You've seen on other cloud videos, sometimes I'll take some of my blues and negative paint and stuff around there, but I want to keep these kind of soft, kind of wispy, maybe a little bit of a light color right in front of this one, because it's going to go right down into that. I want to keep these clouds very simplistic so they don't compete too much against the waves that I want to do there. But that's how you get some of the softness now, and especially the gray underside. And you might want to take a thin little bit of that gray right along the horizon line to reinforce some of that fog line that we put up in there. Just something like that. But so you can build this up. So you can, as you look at your clouds here, you go thicker. So you see me in other cloud paintings, I will add a little bit more open medium, but I'll start to thicken up the paint as I start to paint the lighter, more front part of a cloud here. So I imagine it thin and wispy, and then I start to thicken it up here. And that's what gives me the beautiful part, the big sunstruck, larger part of the cloud. Maybe I'll put another little one right in there here. Light's coming from the left, so the cloud would be really light there onto the left. But I get thicker and thicker with the light paint as I build this. Use different corners of your brush. You could use your knife. I like to use all kinds of stuff, but you can burnish that down and create all kinds of looks there, okay? So there's a very simplistic way to add some beautiful clouds, adding your light to dark and stuff around through here. Now, let's go over to our beach, okay? So we want to put a triangle in here of our beach. The beach is, I'm just going to mix this right into here. Good beach is burnt sienna yellow, a little bit of the violet, with a little yellow oxide, a little bit of burnt sienna, and some of and we're going to take this right along this edge. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to actually paint it a little more extreme than what you see. And let's take this out a little bit further. So it goes almost here, halfway out. So let's go out like that. And soften that edge there. Right into your blue, right into all of this stuff. Let all of this kind of come together here. Just be very free with your colors. Let them cross. Stuff like that. That's what makes the prettiest kind of coloring there. Okay, so now let's lighten that up. As I lighten up, I'd like to go to a little more yellow. So let's lighten that up, and let's just pull a little thicker color. We'll pull right along what that beach color will be there. Not too long. Don't get too wild and long. Short, mottled little strokes. Carry this out into the water some. So you see this water, you see it kind of mixing up and blending there a little bit, making more colors, because this beach and water is this whole water here now is really thin and wet. See, everything is still wet. Even though I haven't touched it for a while, all this is wet. Now, sometimes as I build that beach, and what I'm looking for is this line of color and then softness out through here, okay? That's what I'm looking for. And sometimes I'll use let's just take my knife, lighten this up even more. I love painting with the painting knife, the palette knife, people call it, but this is actually a painting knife, because it has that Z bend in it. This is a Liquitex number 5. All the links for everything are in the video description. But I like to just pull that right along that beach, as I love the interest that it gives using the knife here. So let's just pull that right along there. And you let what happens, guys. We'll pull this back and forth a bit here. Here we go. Maybe some of the beach pulling out where it's going to go into the water here. just like that. Okay, so you get some of that beautiful interest. That's what you look for, all of that. And you let what happens, happens. Let's grab some green, some burnt sienna, and our green here, a little bit of blue, maybe the ultramarine blue here. The ultramarine blue is not as powerful as the phthalo blue. Now see how mottled up this is, right? And we'll use this to kind of push up. I just love painting with the knife because I get these jagged little edges there, see? And it looks like little trees and stuff. But you can see in the reference photo that, you know, you see almost dark, consistent lines, but I can vary that. I can add a little bit more just by pushing up and down slightly and creating like little trees and stuff there. And then we'll pull some of this down like this, right? Let's model it with some of this green with a bit of our beach color as we start to come forward here and let some of these bushes and trees, this is almost like a beach that you'd find. I spent a lot of time on the beaches down in Newcastle and stuff down in Australia. This is almost like the beaches you would see down there. Here, and so I'll just model some of that up there like that a bit. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit darker, and I'm using the ultramarine blue, but you could easily use that phthalo, but the phthalo will go really dark really fast, so you gotta, so if you do use this, it's just a little because it goes really dark really fast. And let's just pull some of that through here just to say we did it. A few little broken lines. Now you can, broken lines, you can do it with your brush. I sometimes will come through with my finger and I have to wipe it almost every time just to blur that off. Let's get that out of the sky there, here. And then go back and reset some of the, with the knife here. I love the edge of the knife, but sometimes it doesn't work quite as well. And so you take it off with the brush. You can, or with your finger. You can also blur down, pull down and blur. See how that blurs it immediately? And the blurring gives you distance. So wipe your brush, make sure it's kind of clean, start up into the fog and pull down like that. So what you're doing is dragging that fog down in. Now, if you've played a little long and that fog is a little bit dry, just add some fog in there and do it again. Add some clouds, add some color. Add in there and pull down again. Just blur it down. So there we go. And let's just tap some of that. Maybe a little bit larger right up here like that. Now, and if I get too much, like I got just a bit too high, too much, I'm going to take some of my gray, some of my fog color, maybe just a touch of that thing, and just take it back out. This is what artists do. We'll paint back and forth, and I'll add a bit of that fog line and stuff right back in there and blur that along. I'd like some of those, even some of those green colors to come through in there because that gives you a harmony. And sometimes I'll take this thin, this color I just used up here, really thin, and you'll see me in like the westerns and stuff that I do, I'll whisper it through into my sky. Just little whispers of that color. You pick up that color ever so lightly up here into the sky. It really looks great. Okay, so now you have that beginning line there. Let's yellow up, lighten up a bit, and let's add a little more lightness right into that center area of our beach there, right? That looks pretty good. See, I'm just pulling that right along like that, lifting the pressure a bit as I go back out there. Now, we wipe my knife and I'm going to pull it, push and pull it a bit back into that tree line. So we'll get some variation here against that line. That's what I'm going to look. So you can see in the, like the photo up there or back in through there, there's edges, like especially right in here where you're closer, where that edge, that grasses and edges of the beach vary back and forth. So Let's vary that. Let's take a little dark and just kind of pull down and vary this. This is very much the impressionism that I just love to do. I just love the impressionism of it. So we're not going in there and painting it perfect. We're doing all kinds of other little things here. We'll push that back and forth and just look to see that we get that kind of beach. Now, up in the front, and it's just ever so true. I love the blue and the, like a sapphire and some of this. In the front of the water line, it gets kind of violet. The wet sand gets kind of violet. Maybe a bit of blue into that. Gets a beautiful violet color. And you can just barely, maybe you can pick that up on that there, but it's kind of light, soft. I'll put a little sand color into this, model this up so it's not absolutely perfect. And that's what gets that wet sand look right up here, right up along that line. I'll push that in like that. So these are fun. I mean, I'm slowing it down. Normally when I'm painting like this, I'll do a painting like this in under 30 minutes. But we're at 43 because I like to explain it to you guys. But I do love to work these very fast. And so you have a choice here now. You can continue to do that, or you can pull in and out like this. And if it doesn't move as easy for you, this moves pretty well. See how it still moves pretty nice? It's a bit sticky, but it does move. And that's enough movement for me. But if it doesn't move enough for you, you can add a little bit of water to your brush, just a little bit. A moist brush. Let me just do this and show you. You want a moist brush. Water is your solvent. And you got to be careful. Water also dries very fast. But extender, if it starts to dry up, extender won't move it as fast. Water will move it. So here's just a little dampness in my brush. See how quickly that moves this color? Just a damp brush. And this works on the Heritage. This is what the Heritage paints are designed to do, to work that damp brush, to work that, so you can soften that out or blend it out a little bit if you want. Now, I'm going to take a bit of this back here and create another little peninsula back out here. Maybe just a little bit longer there. I like that back here. It's like another little bit of it right back here. Right back. Create a bit more of the island right back there. That's kind of neat. And pull that up and back here. That's kind of neat. Now, here's the other thing. So I have my damp brush. I got that a little further down than I want. I'll just take some of my darks, my blue, a little bit of dark, right back here like this, and I'll lift it out. Just a touch of what I don't want back there. And let's just whisper some of that. And this is what I like to drag some of these colors back and forth here. A little bit of water so they move. I like to drag like that, those colors. Now, if I want to soften that back edge, that little island back there, I can grab anything kind of light sky. Here's a little light sky into my brush and just pull right down into it. Wipe your brush, because see, I picked up dark. So I want to get rid of that, or turn the brush over and just pull down again, and I'll blur that out. Right? I'll blur that out. There we go. Just blur that little edge out right there like that. Okay. So now you could use a smaller brush. A little bit of open medium here. You can come back in and, add any kind of little extra ridge type of details or something like that, for some various, like the look of island hills or something, that's up to you how much you want to do. But you can come back and add some of that. Especially it works really nice since we have a nice softer edge to work on, but you can do that. Here we go. Just some stuff to work on. And you remember that light side to the left, shadow side to the right, because light is coming just like on the clouds and stuff here from the left to the right. Okay, now let's put on some waves. And I'm going to do these pretty simple. I want everything pretty simple. So first I'm going to put on some lighter color. I love the lighter color to have a bit more the phthalo, which gives you a lighter aqua color, and a little thin. So I'm going to add some extender to this, thin this out just a bit. But I want a lighter color. We want to get, I might have to add some more white, guys. So I'll use some of this beach into it a little bit here too. But I want to create the lighter color in here and modeled. This is the lighter color that comes into the water. Now, sometimes I like this really aqua, which is going to, your aqua color is going to come from your phthalo, and sometimes I like it a little more violet, which comes from your ultramarine blue and your sapphire colors. And I'll pull this around like this, push this around. I love to paint with my hand. And I'm right-handed, but I love to do all of this kind of stuff with my left hand, like you're seeing here, because I like the freedom that my left hand adds to it. It doesn't paint, my left hand doesn't paint like my right hand. And I love that kind of freedom. So now I get some of this modeling through here. Let's just model this up a bit back out in here. And you could also use your brush. Pull through this with your brush. And you can see, you can give the motion of that, of where those waves and stuff are. All this is still wet, guys. Okay? So, you know, and if it isn't, and this is what I always tell everybody, if it isn't, and you're not used to working acrylics like this, and it isn't, then you just add some more blue back over it. That's all. Just add some more blue. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just add more blue back over it and start learning how much extenders and stuff to work with. Now I'm going to add, I think that's just a little too much of a straight line right there. So I'm going to add a bit more of a beach right up here, a little further back in. So I'm just taking a little yellow and white, and I'm going to push this back in just a touch more. So it's not quite, you know, it's a bit straight of a line there. So I want it to jog out a bit here. Is what I'm looking for. Maybe even create that little down slope here of a beach. Right like that. There we go. Before it hits that nice violet color into the waves here. And we'll let some of that come right out, back and forth. See, that's what I like, those colors, real soft movement there, back and forth. A little more violet here. A little more violet. Sorry about that. I just realized camera 3, which is my down shot, shut off on that, so that you didn't get to see the palette right there like that. But this was my phthalos and my whites and stuff that I added right in there, modeling all of that up, right? And then this is the violets. I'm back into the violets here. For some reason, camera 3 just went boop, shut off. So, yeah, I have to watch that all the time. I always try to watch, and you see me looking at it right here. I mean, I'm always looking at record, 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 making sure it does it, because sometimes these things have a mind of their own. But you get the idea here, right? And so I'm just going to push and model that together. I love that. And maybe push this up into this edge just to blur that edge, but sometimes leave those little sparks. I like those little sparks of light coming down through there. Let's get just a touch of lighter yellow here. Then we'll go into the fun part, which is the water. Yeah, that's pretty. Let's get a little bit more. I'm going to put out a little more white too for the water when we go to do that. But a bit of that yellow, that's pretty, a little bit bright. So we'll gray it down. A little gray, a little blue, a little violet. gray that beach down just a bit. All those colors work. And if you can model means I model I get the colors all in there, but I don't mix them up to make their own independent color. It's kind of like, the other word I like to use sometimes is marbleize. It looks like it's been marbleized. The color swirling a bit, So, there we go. Just like that. That looks pretty cool. Maybe a little bit of that light color right out here, right into that beach there. That's kind of neat. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here with the water. So this is all still wet. See, it's all still wet. This is, I put that on, modeled it in there with some extenders and stuff. It's a little bit thinner. Now I'm going to take some of these colors that I have here. Usually what I do is I'm, taking all of these colors that I have here, makes beautiful grays, and I'm going to put out a bit more white, and I'm going to be painting with the open medium now, and I'm going to be putting on the waves. So I'm going to take just a little bit of this color over here, some of the violets and stuff, and this will make the grays, the gray of the water. Does that make sense? Isn't that kind of pretty color? And I want to add about an equal amount of open medium to this, okay? And I'm going to start up here into the front so I can see it. So up into the front, there's a pretty big wave right up here, and I'm just going to pull it back. So you can see it hits kind of like the same feeling that I have here with the clouds. And this is why I like to teach clouds and waves and stuff like this at the same time, because they have that same feeling. So this will be a wave. Now, if you want to make a really rough day, like you're putting up here, if you want a really rough day, you can curve it down and up, and that would give it more of a trough to the wave. I will pull this a couple times like this, and I don't even always worry about cleaning off my knife or anything, but I'll pull that through, and you can see, you can grab that wave. I'll take my brush here and just soften some of that color in like this. Let that stay right in. This is not the foamy part of the wave. This is just the body of the wave. Does that make sense? So I especially blur back through there, a little thicker right up here. You can see where it's thicker and control it. If it's not thinning out for you, maybe add a little bit of extender or something like that, or more open medium to that wave, right? So here's one right out here. That's going to go there. Maybe this smaller one comes right up here. And so then I'll start working a few of them here, right out, right through, like that, right? Boom. Maybe this heavier line of them here. Try to break it a little bit so it's not one continuous line. But this is where they get pretty. Now this is a bit heavy, and I'm going to show you how we can soften that. But then as I get back here, they get just ever so tiny, right? This is where they get tiny back there, right? Okay, so now I have that, and I like that, but it's a little too much. So now what I do is I take my blues, especially that aqua. I like that aqua. It makes aqua. It's the phthalo. And I can push into that to start to soften that out, and it makes the intermediate colors. So I'll take some of the light out of there, right, like that, and soften some of that out. Sometimes, as you see back here in some of these other waves, though, you might have another one right back here, and then just run a little blue onto its side here. There we go. Now, and all of this, you can take your big brush and just pull through, just like the cloud, and set the motion of that wave. Sometimes I poke into it and pull down slightly like that, and that gives that motion here of that wave, right like that, see? And you can, here, boy, it's, really easy to see. Here, I'm just going to push in a little more color. But see, I can push this blue up into here, just like you see that. So if I feel something's a little too heavy, I can push the blue right back in to that and soften that out. Soften out that motion there on that, okay? So that is the first color. So that isn't our white. Now, what I'll do is you can see your white is quite a bit lighter. Sometimes I like to have just a touch of blue into that white. So it's not pure white, just a touch. But the white now, white small, just hit the small little bits of the wave here with that. And you can wipe your brush and pull back, leaving just the tips and some of that mixing up here. You know, that looks very much like that, but I want to see, I can push. If I push, I'll dig out some of both of those colors, and the blue underneath will come up, right? But now this color, guys, is thicker, right? So it's sitting right on the top here. So I have the first color, which is more gray, which is the softer color of the cloud, and then the light, and then I can push this in here and direct the wave a bit, right? I can soften it, burnish it together, but you want to get some of these different values in there. Does that make sense? Get some of these different, all, so you can see the grayness of the wave, the whiteness of the wave. And the killer is to get it too white. You don't want to get it too white. You don't want that white coming through. Does that make sense? I can drag it like this and create some of the foam, right like that. If I go up, take some of this, and I go up along the beach here, then I start to create some of the thin, transparent look to the water. Does that make sense? And you can give a lot of artists like to give the little light edge to the water along the beach there, to the thinness of it. Now that's too heavy there, so I'll take it out. Now, here's the other thing. What's the other thing that you have, which is very important, is water is your solvent, right? So I'll take a clean brush. I want to take some of that out. So I can burnish it with the knife, I can push it with my finger, or I can take a damp brush like this and lift it back off, leaving just a little edge like that, which is really pretty, see? And leave that light little edge right there. And so I can use this damp brush to direct any of my waves here, to soften them, to move some of them through and stuff, to give some different looks. Get back to your damp brush. Now, what I like about this is this real dark kind of band right in there. So we can go back. Now, clean brush with a little dark should have some extender in this. And I'll use the extender because I want the thinness of it. Does that make sense? I want the white to have more power. I'm using this to add the shadow back into the wave, right in through there. And so I want the thinness of it. I want the thin here, the thinness of that. So use your color thin. Let's put in a bit right here, a little thicker. I love that deep shadow of a trough right here. Come through. The deep shadow means deep water there. And some extender. I can make that deeper shadow trough right out here. Right out into this. Pull right up into the wave if you think you've got your wave a little too big. Just pull right up into the wave there. Right? So we're looking at the back side of the wave, which is a little different than some of the other waves that I've painted with you guys. Right? Yeah, and I would go back and forth a few times here, maybe back and forth, maybe drag a bit more of this through here. That's kind of pretty. A little bit more white onto this one. maybe right up along the top here to get that one a bit more energy. And let's just use a soft brush, or just pull back through that. Wipe your brush, pull back through that. Wipe your brush, pull back through that to create that look. And you can pull up to the edge to give it a nice burbly, like a length, or you know, like the rolling edge there. That's kind of neat. I like a little heavier right in here. A little bit more of the light color pulling through there, like that. So, and then, but if you want to get more splashes, then just take your white and you can splash it up as much as you want, you know, create rolls and rooster tails if you want, and all that kind of good stuff. That's all up to you, how much you like. Sometimes I like to, towards the edge of the wave, I'll give it a few little broken edges and stuff to make it look like churning water and stuff. That's all up to you. You know, you can see very simplistic. Some of this is just really simplistic back there. So I try to keep mine here. And it's a nice, quick little painting, quick little thing. But everything we do, and this is what, you know, I'm having a lot of my friends and stuff that I'm teaching right now, practice is consistencies. You paint the consistencies of your, or concentrate on the consistencies of your paint. That is what gives you look. I'm going to pull through just a bit here and let that kind of pick. I don't like to line them up quite so much. This is lined up pretty much, and so I don't like doing that quite so much. So I'm going to take this off. It's one habit that I have, is to line all of the waves up exactly, and that's a habit, and I want to get out of that here. So let's just pull some of this lighter through. That's good. And then I'll redirect it where I want, with some light or some dark pulling through. Chop it up a bit. But see, that dark, you can just come back in there and redirect it a bit to what you want. And, you know, one of the things you look and you study on that photo, you see that that dark that's back here stops pretty quick right up against that light as you get further back. And that's what happens in distance and see. You don't pick up all of the aqua colors that you do as you come front. So we tend to eliminate them a bit back here and go light to dark. That's kind of pretty. I like this, the motions that you see there. I like that motion, but it's very, you know, it's and you can create as much as you want. If you can take the thick color, and if you take the thick color and just drag a bit, you can create that little foamy look, you know. So if you want more foam into your water and you want to get some of that in there, you can just take this and just drag, and that's what you're going to see. You just drag like this and you will create the foam. How much you create? Well, that's up to you. How much do you want to have? If you get too much, just take it out. The foam will be done more flat, okay, and the wave's slightly curved. So here I'll flatten this out slightly. And so this is the dragging of the foam and stuff through, just like that, through the water. And sometimes that, to create that extra little bit, we can just drag like this, and that just, and I'll soften those out, but that creates the kind of tail of the wave. Now, further out, you'll notice, and it's kind of hard to see on the photo right there, but back up here you have some beginning of the waves, and they're just beginning to curl, and you do those because now we're looking into the trough of a wave, and so the trough is very dark. We're seeing on the other side of it over here. So you would curve up like this here. And let's put the very beginning, like these waves here. We could have a little bit of a trough here. Down into the trough. And maybe just the idea of one right out here. So you paint waves both with light and dark, guys. But we're going to keep these kind of simplistic. I ran a whole series years ago on William Troust, William Troust Richards. He's a seascape painter, and he was from the East Coast back in the 19th century. Fantastic. And I studied and painted tons of his seascapes and till I understood them. Now I'm going to take just a bit of the light color here. And this would be the very beginning here, because we're looking at the other side of the wave here, because it's back behind it. This would be the very beginning of a wave here, where you see the shadow in the trough right there. Maybe a little one right up here like that. It's just kind of fun. I love to understand the waves, and so I paint just a bit of the idea there that wave is starting up. This one is starting up. Bit of the trough right there. And then they get all kinds of foamy back there. There we go. So that's there. But back here, they're darker right into the trough, and then on the backside, they're lighter, and they drag out. They drag out. So, but how much you do, that's up to you, right? You can do that, but it gives you an idea. So there's the simplistic of the clouds. Now, if I wanted more on these clouds, it's very, very wet. I want to touch that up there, show you, but I don't want to screw up my painting. But it's very, very wet, and you could very easily add lighter if you want to make more puffy clouds. I want this to be about the painting here, and I want this to be really, really impressionistic more than anything. I love the impressionism of them. So I'm just going to grab that just a bit. It's just light dark too fast for that. So I'll just drag through it here. There we go. That's better. That looks better. I like that bit of dark in there that you see. Kind of fun. So hopefully, you give this a try. And you know what? I always tell all my students, it's a board and it's a little bit of paint. How much paint did I actually use? I use some white, but, it's not very much. It's board and it's a little bit of paint, and you just sit down and you try it. Now, I like to use a board. Now, one of the reasons why I like to use a board, because a board, the weave of a canvas panel doesn't impede the movement of my knife. Does that make sense? But if you use a finer portrait weave on a canvas panel, you can certainly do it. Or fill it up a little bit with some of the canvas prep medium, you can do it, okay? But, yeah, it's really kind of fun. And, I could increase the contrast there. That's a little bit darker. Maybe I will. I'll just show you guys real quick. And this is your choice. So I'll take a bit of my phthalo. You could even go to a dark violet here. I don't want to go right to the edge. I want to come right below the edge slightly. But this is going to drive the viewer's eye back over to this corner a bit. But that's okay. I've got a lot going on. And so you can see that gives even just another little look to it, doesn't it? You can pull some of that color right through like that as it's picking up that wave there. But it's just, it's a beautiful color. Now you can, and there's more of that dark in through here. Maybe I will put some of that back in. But see, I can easily do this. This is going to stay wet for quite a while. I can easily do that here. Let's just take that one out just a bit here. like that. That's kind of pretty. And this is a bit too much of a spot. So let's just take that out a bit. Now waves, you know, the only thing that I mean, I have this habit of, you know, carrying them, lining them up like little soldiers walking into a battle. So I don't want to do that, you know. And generally they are, but you don't always do that. You break it up a little bit, right? Yeah. So let's take a bit of our light and our beach color here, thin it out, right? Some of our beach color here, and just take out a little bit of that, a little bit lighter. So see, you can come back with the brush and just soften some of that color there. And this got to be the beach color. Get a little bit of the beach color, the violets in that. That's, you've got, because you're looking through transparent water, so you want to pick up the beach. Does that make sense? There we go. Now we got it. So very little blue, but mostly the transparent water and beach color. That's good. All right, I could play with this forever, but I think that's a pretty good, you get a pretty good idea there of what that's going to look like, okay? So anyway, they're a lot of fun, and you got to keep in your mind, it's just a little board and paint, and you're going to try stuff. And there's going to be times where it doesn't work, and so you go back and you try it again, and you try it again, and then you try it again, okay? But you have some fun with that. And what I want you to do is, well, a lot of times of what we do, artists, is we tend to repeat. So, you know, some people say, I've tried, I've done it 27 times and it doesn't work. Well, probably 26 times of those things, you've repeated the same thing just over and over and over and over again. So you got to constantly try and change up the things that you're doing. In these types of paintings and clouds and some of the roses that I paint, consistency of the paint is the most important thing. I'm a thin to thick painter. When I paint landscapes, I paint shadows thin so that my lights are thicker and my lights have more power. And that is a Victorian technique that has traveled through landscape painters for hundreds of years, okay? And so, yeah, there's a technique for doing absolutely everything. But have some fun with it. Create some you know, beautiful little looks to a impressionistic landscape, okay? And have some fun with it. So I'm going to continue on, still have my nice little Indian that I want to paint with you guys, but I got a question on this morning, and I thought, ooh, I'm going to just jump right out here in the studio and paint this with you guys real quick, okay? And if there's something else you want to see, make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you smash that like button. Guys, please like the videos because, you know, I know a lot of you watch, thousands of you watch it, but we only get a couple hundred likes. So make sure you take just a few minutes to go over there and like that button. Drop a comment on there because that helps our distribution of our videos. It really helps us, okay? All right. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you on the next one in which should be out in about 2 days, okay? All right. See you later.